I'm going to be talking about a project I did recently. So it's an insurance company website, and it uses, as you may have guessed, Drupal Commerce, Webform, and the group module. Group is not organic groups, just in case you're wondering. Lots of people still don't seem to know what it is, and that's fine. I'm going to cover all of those things. So, who am I? I'm a freelance contract developer that does Drupal. I'm also a Drupal 8 core contributor working on front-end and usability issues. I organise Drupal West London user group, which is because I live in West London and Central London's a bit far. So I thought there might be other people. And there are 150 people. So yeah, really cool, laid-back user group. I've been involved in training and mentoring Drupal devs. And I'm a little bit of a Drupal meetup and camp addict. Guilty. So I first played with Drupal in 2008 when I should have been working my final year university project. And somehow the procrastinator in me looked at WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and decided to go down the Drupal route. And then since then I've worked with organisations like the Health Foundation, Toyota, Oxford University and some others on that list, including Microserve and NDP. So today I'm going to be covering a bit of the background on the project, some of the site architecture, and then delving into all three of those main modules. So some of the bits around the quote builder, the architecture and selecting relevant commerce products, and also how I configured the group module to do tiered access for different types of users. So the main brief essentially was to build a web application handling quotes, policies once you have bought a quote, and then claims made on those policies. So there's lots of different users that interact with the system, and they range from a consumer going directly to the website, or you may have an electronics retailer that has customers coming in, purchasing a product, and then the dealer adds their information, or you've got multiple different levels of dealer that interact with data in a different way, and then the actual end client themselves. So this is the website. It's been slightly modified. At the top you'll see CK Insurance, just because of NDA, Chandeep Khosa Insurance, and then it says insure your Drupal website, just to get past NDA. But yeah, essentially on here you can see you've got consumer electronics that you can insure, including dishwashers, washing machines, and television. Some of the different types of users I've mentioned already. You've got consumers, and then those types of dealers, you've got staff in an actual retail store. You've got their branch admins that can see all of the data within their branch, and you've also got the head office users. So in some of these cases, you may have 900 branches and then one head office dealer, and in some cases you've got sole traders who are effectively a head office and a branch at the same time. So some of the needs of the website are to inform people on a purchase to decide to purchase, purchasing via getting a quote, getting a policy and making claims and managing their policy. Around the site architecture, there are two main content types, and that's a policy and a claim. And then there's a web form that's been named request a quote. And then there are multiple commerce products. So if you are getting a quote, here is the web form you see. You'll see it has fields, some of which are quite standard on lots of different Drupal builds. So at the top you get asked for personal information like your first name, your last name, and email address. And then there's a GDPR box for anyone who was here yesterday, General Data Protection Register. It's just an opt-in box, effectively. And then some of the differences on what will happen in future steps are dependent on if you're a landlord or not. So by driving the check now, if you're a landlord, you get different conditions. But effectively what you're doing here is you're saying, I've got a washing machine, I'd like to purchase 3 years of cover for it, I paid this price for it, I bought it on this date, and then you'd also specify the number of manufacturers, warranty. So those two boxes at the bottom left, they can only be a total maximum of 5. So there's some logic and validation in there. Some of the learnings from using Webform were, for some reason, so this is a Drupal 7 site. With Webform, I'm pretty sure I ran drush en Webform, and I think that what happened is it installed Webform free, but I didn't notice until later on when I wanted to add tokens for the first name and the last name and for other user fields from the user. And that's great because Webform 4, instead of free, you have full token support, whereas in Webform 3, you can only choose selective fields that are already in there, like your email address. It's better to figure that out earlier before you have loads of custom code reliant on it, because it can break it. So I'd suggest make sure you're already on 4. 4 is pretty good. It's very stable. Don't know how 3 got in instead. So yeah, and there's also the ability to theme this inside the web form. Now that can be controversial. Some themers prefer to do all of the theming in code, in template files, but occasionally for certain projects this makes sense. The front-end dev that was working with me on this project actually went and got web form wrappers because it's a multi-step web form and he didn't want to make loads of different templates. So to a certain extent it was living in the database. But the web form wrappers contrib module, what it allows you to do is insert classes, just like some of those bootstrap ones. So you can have a row for the first level and different column classes. So in this case, there's a column MD4, but you can also attach all of those different levels of LG, MD, SM, and XS. So here you've got some of those fields that are driving that first page I showed you in the screenshot. And you can see you've got the rows and columns here. And if you actually edit those, then you see the columns classes. But also next to the values there, you can see it says current user field first name, and then last name, and then their email address. So that effectively pre-fills this get a quote form if you already exist as a user. So next time you want to get a quote on a different appliance, you're saving some of your time. And then here's web form wrappers if you were to hit edit on one of those rows or columns. So you'll see there you've got the ability to specify a div and the column class. So that's most of what was happening with Webform. There are a couple of other pages, but a similar approach was taken. With Drupal Commerce, I created 3 different product displays. So for those of you that might not be familiar with how Commerce is set up, you'll have a product display, which is like a parent product, and you'll have product variations, which are children products for variations of size and color. So in this case, you've got a standard product, which will be what's used in most cases on the website, but then you've also got the ability to purchase accidental damage, which has its own pricing and different logic. So if you're in Commerce and you're creating a product, you'll choose which of these 3 types you'll create. That final one is for special cases of when there's a deal for a dealer to buy a heavily discounted item like a Samsung TV that is like half price or whatever else it might be, but it's only on special number of years of cover and certain product numbers. And obviously it has different fields, so it just makes sense to have as a different product display. Here's a view I made to make it a little bit easier to edit that. Each of those rows is effectively a different product display, and then hitting edit on those gives you all of the variations, which will be on the next screen. But you've got the ability to choose your different taxonomies in your category filter. So each of the product displays have been tagged with a certain category. So in this case, the categories listed will be American fridge freezer, audio system, and then it goes on. And here's what would happen if you were to hit edit as an administrator. None of the other users, apart from the admin users, see this with its admin theme, which you see at present. But what you can see there is there's quite a few variations on that one product. And this can be broken down into 3 components. If you look at the SKU column, you've got dealer pricing for the first 4, and consumer pricing, and a special scheme that has its own number. But essentially what's happening is each of those has different variables that get selected based on what you've chosen in your web form. And the numbers after the final hyphen of the 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are corresponding to different numbers of years of cover. And this is what one of those looks like when you hit edit. So the information you store on one of these is manufacturer years, the product code, which is built from a taxonomy, and that's using hierarchical select. And then you've got 2 taxonomies for product audience, which is what drives that beginning bit of the SKU, and it does it automatically using the auto SKU module. Thank you, Pedro Canberra. And then you've got the years of cover and the price. And you've also got the ability to change pricing there as well. And then with accidental damage, it's relatively similar, but some of those fields aren't there. Accidental damage applies to all products, but it effectively, you can see, so you've got the years of cover there again, and then you'll put a price range upper limit, and then it will calculate it. Oh, black background. Should have thought about that. So it's a sample of a custom module, and what this says is you've got it's basically finding relevant products, and what it does is it goes through, and depending on dealer codes and other information, it basically picks the values, and it makes that connection between what you chose in Webform and what you've got in your product catalog. This might be a slightly clearer example. So it's basically saying if the appliance value, and then there's lots of different ranges to pick a certain SKU. So if you go back to the web form, if you were to click next on the first step, you don't get a web form page, but you get content from the custom module and the relevant pricing inserted. And that's basically what you get. So at this point, if you had chosen that you're a landlord, you then wouldn't see that second box, and that would be replaced by a nice image. And if you don't want to select accidental damage, you don't tick the box for buy now. And then as you go forward, those things get added to your commerce cart. At the top of the page, you'll see what you get on your shopping basket. So you'll see there's 2 line items. One is your extended warranty, the other one is your accidental damage. And at that point, you can proceed and check out. If you now assume you've already put your car details in, you get the second bit at the bottom, which is your checkout complete. That page at the top, 1 to 5, is using checkout progress, sub-module, contrib module. But one of the things I've done is I've customized the custom text here to include a link to manage your policies. So your web form has selected relevant commerce products, and if you purchase it, it provides you with a policy node which has all of the information that was fed in from the request a quote form. And by clicking on that, then you see a list of your policies, which at this point as a new customer, you would see 1. But in this case, I've provided a few. So this is a view that has a contextual filter on it to show you policies where the author is the logged in user with a contextual filter on views. And then if you're expecting a policy to be here is what you get. That was originally no results behavior, but it's been added there all the time. But you've got actions on there, so you can renew a policy to go beyond its end date. You can cancel it, you can claim on it, and have a PDF link. And the PDF link uses the print module, which gives you what you've got at the bottom half of the screen. And job done. Everyone's happy. In theory. This is a sample of a policy node when you're on the node display and the fields you see as a consumer. There are more fields you see depending on your user privileges as you go up the chain. And some of those things it includes are some of the calculations of what a dealer price, what a dealer would get out of the sale and what the client would want to see, and it drives some of their reporting. I really like that address. I thought it'd be nice to have a real case of just typing random stuff in. I was planning to put in perhaps a real address, but this is real life, you know. You want to be able to validate. So with the dealer groups, so you have the 3 levels. So this is moving on to what I needed to happen, and then I'm about to move into groups, hence the terminology. So you have staff, branches, and head offices. So head office users should be able to create new branches and users to manage those branches, but also should be able to see everything in the entirety of what belongs to their organization. And that will come up on reports and be CSVs, downloads. For branches, they can do something similar but restricted. So they can create staff that will belong to their branch, and if those staff go and create things, they get policies and etc. What they can do is they can see policies and claims, but restricted to their branch, and staff shouldn't be able to create any users or groups, but they should be able to create policies and claims and see those of their colleagues inside the same branch. Group module, pretty awesome. So many people are more familiar with organic groups, which has been out since 4.7 Drupal. This is a bit different. So this uses entities, but raise your hands if you've worked with organic groups. Okay, cool. Keep your hands up if it's been painful at times. This is why this was created. So Christian works for Decent. He's in Belgium, and he has solved our problem for us. So he's basically made this work with an entity-first approach, and instead of having to, with organic groups, create a node, and the node is a group, this basically has them all separated. So it's a better developer experience, loads of things better. But one of the things I like most about it is that really cool icon graphic. I can't remember what they're called, but he has a video and he goes through the logic, and you essentially have three types of those, whatever those cartoon characters are called, I can't remember now. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but it feels logical. So imagine you've got a university and you've got people who are going to become a node and people who are going to become a taxonomy, and then there's some people that want to be a group. But rather than, it's basically going to, rather than turning a node to do what it wasn't supposed to do, just get a group doing what it's supposed to do, and somebody actually studies to be a group and then graduates. But yeah, I really like the way he explains it. So this is existing for Drupal 7 and 8, and it's been released since 2016. Most people are probably using it in Drupal 8, I would say. Most Drupal 7 sites have probably continued to use organic groups if they need them, based on the amount of work. So with groups, what I've done is for this use case, I effectively have staff. Staff don't belong to a group in a normal way, but they are members of a branch. And then branch admins also live in a branch, but they have like an admin account. And that's all done through roles. But what I've done here is I've got a head office and a branch, and then I've made a subgroup, which is one of the modules that comes with the group module. And then I've enabled a branch to be a subgroup of a head office. One of the things I was doing while I was setting this up was I set an additional level at the top for the client, but then I realized the client just needs to see everything. So they don't really need to be in a group, and you don't want the extra admin of having to add all the client users to a group. So there's a really simple permission in the Drupal permissions, and it's a tick box for bypass group access. And then you've saved all that work. I wish I knew that at the beginning. So yeah, you've got a couple of different roles: head office admin, branch admin, and staff. And then what happens when you trickle down from that top level group to the second level, you can decide what role the new person will have. But what I've done here is I've taken a quick snapshot of some of the group-related permissions inside the role. And this is quite different from a traditional group, because a traditional group would assume you want to go in and view this group and request access to be part of a group. And that could be a society or a Drupal specific interest type group. But this is forcing people to only be allowed to certain groups based on someone granting them to them. So some of the permissions that have been disabled are basically all of them. But the few I've enabled are the ability for a head office admin to view the group and to manage email invitations. And that email invitation process has been extended with a custom module that basically automates some of those steps. So what you'd normally need to do is create a group, create a user, and then invite that user that exists to be a member of that group. But when you've sent somebody an email invitation, they don't become a user. They only become a user when they follow that email link that they're sent. Then they become a user. Then somebody has to add them as a member of the group. So that basically automates a lot of those steps. This is what you see when you're viewing a head office group as user one. You'll see at the top you've got all of those blue links, and what that's allowing you to do is create content that will automatically have the parent group, which I'm about to show shortly. But what you have on policies and claims is the ability to tag them with a parent group, and that's what makes all of the stuff work on your views and your reports. So on here, if you were to, so you see your first two links are adding a head office admin or adding a dealer branch. That automates the add a user and make them have the relevant member role. Those others are more related to creating a certain type of product or a node and auto-relating them. But that's not what any of the users see. So what I've done is I've hidden all of those, apart from maybe the first one or two. And also you've got 3 blocks on the left-hand side. These are controlled and shown to certain users based on their user role. So the bottom one, manage dealers, you see all head offices and all branches. That's shown to the client admin. The one above that, to manage your branches, is shown to the head office admin. And the one above that, where you see your branch, that's if you're a dealer staff. And then you've got the ability to add all of those fields, just like with a normal node type, on a group. If you click on the members inside the same thing, you get a list of them. So admin is... Okay, cool. Oh, maybe this is better for the lighting, actually. Yeah, so admin is there. You've got your head office admin and somebody else. So what we have here is what you see when you're creating a new head office group, and the ability to choose a membership type. And then what would happen if you're logged in as a head office admin, you'd see the top screen when you click on My Branches. So in this case, you'd see your head office account and your 4 city branches. If you were to click on the head office account, you've got the ability to add a dealer branch on there. But yeah, that relationship happens. So you have to be on your head office, then add a subgroup, and then it relates them. Cool. And this is how you make content relate to a parent group. So this I've automated on all of the relevant pages, but you still have the ability on a normal site to just change that parent group. And the way I've chosen to do it, you don't ever add a head office group, you always add a branch. So it just makes the permissions work nicely. And then you'd hit save or add another policy. And on this, you're basically seeing a view of all policy nodes, and you're showing certain fields with some filters. But this is me as a head office admin seeing all of the policies that belong to my organization. And you'll see you've got Birmingham, Coventry, London, and then relevant deals. And at the bottom, you've got data exports with views data export. A branch admin user is one level below that, and they see the same report, but you'll notice it doesn't show all of those different branches in different cities. And if they were to choose the salesperson, they can choose individuals like Chandeep and Anna and Rachel. Yeah, pretty cool. So in summary, all these modules are awesome, but when they're used together, that's where the magic really happens. And you can use that to make a real powerful business critical application. that survives power cuts. So I've got my email address there, and please leave feedback on joinedin/talk/88D9A. Questions?
Yeah, so as it stands at the moment, the group module doesn't have a full release version, does it? It's in beta.
Not in Drupal 8. Not in Drupal 8.
Oh,
So in 7 it's a full release, in 8 it's still not a full release. And the link just here, I checked this morning. So the link just there, the blue link, that shows you the meta roadmap, and on there there's about 4 items that need to be done. One of them is making permissions a bit nicer, something, they seem to be relatively minor tasks, but from watching other videos from Christian, he talks about wanting to make sure that that full release is amazing, and he's waiting to get more feedback from other devs to put in all of what they want, because after that it gets trickier to add things.
Very true.
Does that answer your question? Do you have more?
It does, yeah.
I didn't wait for you to finish today.
It was just how you deal with the fact that it's got a much smaller usage than organic groups on Drupal 7. So whereas in Drupal 8 quite a lot of people are using group already, in Drupal 7 the vast majority of people are using OG. And how do you deal with getting that kind of peer support and stuff?
Well, I suppose it's not an issue for me or this site, but this question, I suppose, is outside of that. So I watched all of the videos while I was trying to figure some of these issues out, and nobody had anything with those subgroups on any of those examples. But yeah, from some of the things he's saying, one of the reasons he wanted to make the group module ready for Drupal 8 fast was OG didn't exist, so to try and capture those people before they go down the bad path. I can't say that, can I? All modules are created nicely. What's that expression? You know, mothers and beauty and stuff. Anyway. But yeah, that's about all I know, really.
And it's an insurance thing. So,
Sorry?
where are the people getting? Where are the costs coming from in the products? Are you reporting those, or are there people manually updating those?
Some of this was manual, and some of it, yeah. So the amount of data at the beginning wasn't that much, but it's a matter of just providing. So there's an SKU cloner. So the original pricing that we had. So one of the things that's happening in this project is prior to this website, they had a relatively low-tech version of this, and there were some issues with suppliers. But they didn't have a consumer arm, they just had the dealers, and they didn't have the great user interface either. So they're moving from only having dealer prices to having consumer prices. They were bumped up by about 50%. So we put those original prices in, then did SKU cloners, and that original entry job wasn't that big. But also what was really useful about that was when I sat there for a day adding content, I then realized, oh yeah, maybe I should have added that taxonomy field, and maybe I want to make the user interface better. And one of the things I did in that process that I wasn't originally planning to do was adding a really cool button, clone. I found that useful. Yeah. So from the first line to the second line, everything is the same apart from you change the years of cover to the next value down and change the price. But I get for some normal content editors that might actually confuse them more, so I've kept it in there. But yeah.
Cool.
Anybody else? Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.